Sidney Powell pleads guilty in Georgia Trump election case. Lawyer Sidney Powell pleaded guilty to reduced charges Thursday over efforts to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election in Georgia, becoming the second defendant in the sprawling case to reach a deal with prosecutors. Powell, who was charged alongside Trump and 17 others with violating the state's anti-racketeering law, entered the plea just a day before jury selection was set to start in her trial. She pleaded guilty to 6 misdemeanors accusing her of conspiring to intentionally interfere with the performance of election duties. As part of the deal, she will serve 6 years of probation, will be fined $6,000 and will have to write an apology letter to Georgia and its residents. She also recorded a statement for prosecutors and agreed to testify truthfully against her co-defendants at future trials. Powell was initially charged with racketeering and 6 other counts as part of a wide-ranging scheme to keep the Republican president in power after he lost the 2020 election to Democrat Joe Biden. The plea deal makes Powell the most prominent known person to be working with prosecutors investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the election. Above all, the guilty plea is a remarkable about-face for a lawyer who, perhaps more than anyone else, strenuously pushed baseless conspiracy theories about a stolen election in the face of extensive evidence to the contrary. Powell's only comments in court came in response to routine questions from prosecutor Daisha Young and the judge. There was a moment of levity when Young asked, "How old are you, Mom?" "Oh gosh," Powell said with a chuckle. 68, despite my astonishingly youthful countenance. But Powell was solemn and succinct when Young asked, "How do you plead to the 6 counts of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with performance of election duties?" "Guilty," Powell said, her hands folded in front of her on the defense table. Fishwick also said Powell's plea is helpful to Jack Smith, the Justice Department's special counsel. Powell is referenced, though not by name, as one of 6 unindicted co-conspirators in Smith's federal case charging Trump with plotting to overturn the election. That indictment notes how Trump had privately acknowledged to others that Powell's unfounded claims of election fraud were crazy, yet nonetheless he promoted and embraced a lawsuit that Powell filed against the state of Georgia that included what prosecutors said were far-fetched and baseless assertions. She was about to go on trial with lawyer Kenneth Chesebro after each filed a demand for a speedy trial. Jury selection was still set to begin Friday for Chesebro to go on trial by himself, though prosecutors said earlier that they also planned to look into the possibility of offering him a plea deal. A lower-profile defendant in the case, bail bondsman Scott Graham Hall, last month pleaded guilty to 5 misdemeanor charges. He was sentenced to 5 years of probation and agreed to testify in further proceedings. Steve Sadow, the lead attorney for Trump in the Georgia case, expressed confidence that Powell's plea wouldn't hurt his own client's case. "Assuming truthful testimony in the Fulton County case, it will be favorable to my overall defense strategy," he said. Prosecutors allege that Powell conspired with Hall and others to access election equipment without authorization and hired computer forensics firm Sullivan Strickler to send a team to Coffee County, in South Georgia, to copy software and data from voting machines and computers there. The indictment says a person who is not named sent an email to a top Sullivan Strickler executive and instructed him to send all data copied from Dominion voting systems equipment in Coffee County to an unidentified lawyer associated with Powell and the Trump campaign. Trial dates have not been set for the 16 remaining defendants, including former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who was a Trump lawyer, and Mark Meadows, who was the Trump White House's chief of staff. Willis has faced some criticism over her wide-ranging indictment and use of the state's anti-racketeering law to charge so many defendants. Some people had speculated that, if her case did not go well, it could undermine Smith's case, Fishwick said.